Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Now moving on to the game last night between the Dallas Mavericks and Oklahoma City Thunder, which saw the Mavericks coming out on top in this one. I was pretty concerned about the Mavericks coming out of game one for the specific reason that the Luka injury is definitely hovering over them, but last night it seemed like he sort of got his groove back a little bit, despite the fact that he is clearly still not fully healthy. Coming into the series, it was the concern about that right knee that's sprained for him. And then during the game, he rolled his ankle at one point in transition. That was really bothering him as well. His left knee was bleeding from the first half on. He ended up hitting his head early in the game as well, so he was getting all kinds of tossed around. This was a pretty physical game. I feel like a lot of people have been talking about the refs a lot, myself included, but I do prefer when we get to see the players actually play a more physical game, as long as it doesn't go over the top. And I think that the refs are doing a little bit of a better job swallowing their whistle, but Luka was able to, at least in that first quarter, find his touch once again. He ended up having one of, if not, I would say probably his best playoff game. Now, a lot of it did come in that first quarter, scoring 16 points. He hit his first 3 threes and really got himself going then. He finished the game with 29 points total, shot 11 of 21 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. This is just his second game in the postseason shooting over 43% from the field. His first game shooting over 36% from 3. Definitely has been struggling with efficiency through the first series plus one game against the Thunder, where his shooting splits for the season were 49-38, and he has not looked like the same version of himself. Last night, he at least was able to recover some of that. Again, first quarter is where he got a lot of his damage done. Second and third quarter, he was a little bit more quiet, but that's where we saw the other step up for them in a big way. PJ Washington, in his first ever postseason, considering he spent the first handful of years of his career playing with Charlotte, he puts together a massive performance. 29 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3. That ties his career high in three-pointers made. Definitely his biggest game of the series up to this point, so was good to see there for him. Tim Hardaway Jr. was also very impactful, as well as he really got himself going after a pretty subpar game one, I would say. Now, to his defense, he was coming back from that high ankle sprain that he suffered in game 2 against the Clippers, but especially in the third quarter is when we saw him sort of take his game to that next level. He did a really good job, I thought, getting himself some looks in transition, and the person who set him up on both of those transition looks that I'm referring to was Kyrie Irving, where if you didn't watch the game, probably were a little unimpressed looking at the box score for him, but ultimately I think that Kyrie's impact in this game went far beyond the box score, where he was just sort of operating the game as a whole, especially in these non-Luka minutes, knowing that he was dealing with the injuries that he is. He was one of, if not, honestly, the most impactful player for the Mavericks, where, I think that we know that Kyrie can get himself buckets anytime he wants to, but in this game, he was sort of operating as a true point guard and finding the hot hands in, again, specifically PJ Washington and Tim Hardaway Jr., but Kyrie finishes this game only 9 points, 2 of 8 from the field, but 11 assists, and I also thought that his defensive impact is something that we're seeing him take a ton of pride in right now. Every time he was basically speaking to the media during the Clippers series, he was bringing up his attention to defense, and we've seen that carry over to this Oklahoma City Thunder series, where He ends up with 2 steals, 2 blocks. It seemed like anytime he would get beat off the dribble, he was using those hands, and it was pointed out by the broadcasting crew, the fact that he was able to sort of just swipe the ball away. And it was just, again, really encouraging to see Kyrie, again, with his understanding. He's one of the veterans in this NBA playoffs, considering all of the youth talent that is surrounding the game right now. And you can see that, this locked-in version of Kyrie has just been so fun to watch, and the fact that he is able to impact the game in different ways. And it's been, again, when you talk about his defense too, and that last night wasn't even necessarily the most tremendous defensive performance from the Mavericks, but the defense has been a conversation with them from the beginning of the season, and now obviously the mid-season additions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford have done tons for them, but Kyrie as well, and his level of buy-in on defense has been a big impact on that. And then he ends up grabbing the offensive rebound with a minute left that sort of helps to kill off a little bit extra time and help the Mavericks close out this game. So, I wouldn't say I pronounced the Mavericks dead. I felt a lot better about my pick of the Thunder after game 1, but I was really worried about this Luka situation. We know that the efficiency with him just has not been there. Again, the 3-point shooting has been really rough for him, and it's very uncharacteristic as well, which is why I think that last night was a step in the right direction. Now he's still shooting 41-27 shooting splits in the postseason so far, so I wouldn't say that it's no concerns, especially considering the fact that it is very clear Luka is dealing with injuries even still. But, a positive step in the right direction, no doubt. But on the Thunder side of this game, it ultimately for them, it was the Mavericks shooting that sort of did them in. We just talked about the 3-point variance in the previous segment, talking about that Celtics-Cavaliers game, when the Mavericks are going to shoot 18 of 37 from the 3-point line. That is just incredibly difficult to put up with. And this was a stat from the Ringer that I believe there have been 51 games that have taken place in the playoffs so far. In those 51 games, 41 of them have seen the team that hits more 3-point shots wins the game. As much as we all enjoy basketball, it is in large part comes down to who is going to hit more threes. They're probably going to win the game. And it was a tough look for the Thunder here, where it's just at some point, their defense can definitely step up, but you're only so limited when PJ Washington is going to have a career night like he did. And I would say this, it's now headed back to Dallas, so the Thunder should be concerned, but at the same time, I do believe that they are the better team. Now, in terms of a potential concern with them, the offensive rebounds for that the Thunder allow has been a story surrounding them for the majority of the regular season. And last night, it was only a slight rebound margin for the Mavericks, but they were able to grab 12 offensive rebounds, especially some big ones in the fourth quarter as well. So that part of the game has to be better for them. And the Thunder, it's clear that there is a level of inexperience with them. Chet Holmgren really struggled last night, and he can still have a defensive presence, but at the same time, offensively, when he is not feeling himself, he is very ineffective. He was 4 of 12 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. I mentioned spacing is going to be such a big part of this Thunder team in this series, because as much as you can pull Daniel Gafford out of the paint for Dallas, is a must for them, which is part of the reason why we did see them choose to take Josh Giddey out of the starting lineup for the second half. It was Aaron Wiggins starting in his place. Giddey only played 11 minutes in this game, played 17 in game 1, so maybe it's a matchup thing, but it does feel like we are sort of headed to a crossroads here with the Thunder where I can't imagine he's going to be in Oklahoma City for the foreseeable future. I think they're probably going to want to cash out on a little bit of his value and maybe try and get somebody who can be a more reliable fifth starter. And I like Aaron Wiggins a lot. I shouted him out during last game, and he was great last game as well. So it's not like I was the only one. Looking back on it here, I'm trying to see. He ended up scoring 16 points off the bench, so I'm definitely not breaking any news there, but it feels like you probably want somebody maybe with a little bit more high-end talent than Wiggins. And again, I like Aaron Wiggins a lot, but I do feel like there's just such a limit that as a fifth starter, I just think that the Thunder can do better. So, it was Chet underperforming, it was the Josh Giddey unreliability, and ultimately, again, it was just the 3-point shooting. So I don't overreact to this game. If you are a Thunder fan, I still feel like they win this one. I had them in 6 coming into it. Now, makes it interesting, the fact that Dallas is able to take this series back home with a chance to take a potential 3-1 lead. Now, I feel like the Thunder can put up a good fight. We do have to see, again, as much as it is a huge positive to see Luka Doncic, having this health come back for him, but or at least not the health, but the shooting stroke coming back for him. He is dealing with health, and hopefully he is able to continue to build on it, but I'm not going to fully declare that he is back until we see a little bit of consistency with it. But we will see. That's all we have on this one. Let us know in the comment section what your thoughts on this series are. They play Saturday afternoon, so a little bit of a quick turnaround, which probably does favor Oklahoma City a little bit considering the whole health impact of this series. But we are going to be now taking our second break, and when we come back on the other side, want to dive into the Phoenix Suns conversation as they chose to fire Frank Vogel yesterday. Already do have their replacement, so stick with us and we will be right back.